How are we doing, YouTube? It's your friendly gamer, SmartEntity here. Today we're going to have a head-on comparison between a 5 Polarity Despair versus a 5 Polarity Hikou Prime. Now, before I get into the comparison, I just want to have a quick talk about secondary weapons in general. It's generally considered by general consensus that the Brak and the Murloc are the top tier secondary weapons. Brak definitely the top tier for close range, and the Murloc is superior to the Brak as far as mid to long range goes, just because there's no damage fall off and there's no, I guess, pellet spreading. But the issue with these weapons is they have low clip size and they do high damage per bullet. So if you're facing enemies that are level 18 minus, it's just not worth wasting one bullet on an enemy that's so low level. So in those circumstances, generally things like the Dex Furious or the Twin Race Vipers or the Race Twin Vipers are generally superior just because they still can pretty much kill an enemy with 1 or 2 shots, but because they got such higher clip sizes, it's generally better for low level gameplay. And of course, classically in the middle between these extremely high powerful bullets such as a Murloc versus a high fire rate of something like Twin Race Vipers, the middle ground would have been your Despair. So these weapons were generally, I guess, a bit more popular in your sort of level 20 to 30-ish gameplay. And now we have the Hikou Prime, which sort of fills that niche with the Despair. And of course, these weapons are, I guess, a bit unique in that they are throwing knives and not bullets, so it may suit some people's gameplay a bit better anyway. Alrighty, so let's get right into it. So looking at the base stats, the Spear has higher damage per shot versus the Hikou Prime, which has a faster rate of fire. So in this sense, this is a very good comparison in that we have two weapons that are somewhat the same, yet it has its own advantages, I guess. So looking at base, it's pretty much a standard build for both of them, and we'll have a look at Warframe Builder here. So here we have the Hikou Prime, pretty standard build, Bear Diffusion, Hornet Strike, Lethal Torrent, and we're gonna go with a Corrosive Fire build for tower as always. Now usually with secondary weapons I actually like to put in Ice Storm instead of Scorch, because Ice Storm gives that additional clip size which actually helps a lot with something like the Brak or the Murloc, which have quite low clip size to begin with. But with the Hikou Prime, is probably one of the few exceptions that I don't use Ice Storm, just because the reload speed is so fast that putting Ice Storm on there will be a waste. I mean, the reload is 0.5 of a second, so there's no point. So we're going to put Scorch in there. Now, the total damage, we have 1,400-ish, and sustained DPS, we got just over 11,000. Looking at the Despair, for the purpose of this comparison, we'll use the exact same build. Normally when I run Despair, I do use Ice Storm instead of Scorch, but we'll use the same build just for comparison fairness. So we have a higher total damage of slightly over 2,400 and a slightly less sustained DPS of 9,000-ish. And the reason for that, of course, is because Despair do have a higher damage per bullet, but the Hikou Prime's rate of fire is so much superior to the Despair's that despite a lower damage per bullet, it has an overall higher DPS, significantly so in fact. Alrighty, so let's just jump into some gameplay. First off, we'll have the Despair. Just as a quick side note, I have sold my Jolt recently. Otherwise, I would put Jolt in here instead of Scorch because that'll magnify the corrosive damage against those heavy gunners. The reason I sold my Jolt is because the Tetraderm event happened a long time ago, and I feel that the mod should be readily available as drops in the near future. I don't know if that's the case, it's just something that I think may be happening. So not recommending you guys setting it, just giving you an explanation of why I've used Scorch in here instead of Jolt. And as you can see, it does take a little bit of time to reload. It's pretty decent reload speed, but it does take a little bit of time. And compare that to the Hikou Prime that we'll see shortly, it's actually a long time reload basically. Now recently, I've had a couple guys messaging me in-game asking me about, the puncture, the impact, and the slash damage that these weapons have. Yes, they do obviously make a difference as far as which race and faction you're facing, but to be honest, once you do put your 5 polarity or 6 polarity on there, and has the full elementals and whatnot, I really wouldn't be too concerned over the slash, impact, and puncture, just because even if a enemy say have no slash damage, which is quite good against infested, if the total physical damage is say twice as good as another weapon that is all slash damage, once you mod it all up, that weapon that have no slash damage but twice the total physical damage will still beat the weapon with half the damage but all slash damage, just because elementals will make all the difference there. So yeah, so again, I wouldn't be too concerned about the physical damage. Especially if you are, relatively new and you only got a couple formers and potato to spin, just spin on the, weapon that has the highest reliable DPS. Now I say reliable because some weapons have high DPS, but they're not really practical to use, notably the Penta. So use a decent weapon that has reliable DPS, and I wouldn't be too worried about the individual physical damage categories. Yeah, so we're looking at about, your sort of 700-ish damage per shot, and of course we got split shot here with Barrel Diffusion and Lethal Torrent, so we're looking at about 2 or 3 times 700 to 800 damage per knife thrown. As far as damage output goes, this is definitely feasible for your 40 plus or even 60 plus T3, T4 survival. Only issue, of course, is these weapons are not as efficient, not as ammo efficient as the Murdoch or the Brack, so I wouldn't recommend taking these weapons to that long survival just because you run out of ammo, unless you are someone who loves dumping ammo restores and whatnot. Okay, so next up we'll do the Hikou Prime with the exact same build, 5 polarity max build. Alrighty, so we're in another T3 Exterminate here, this time showing off the Hikou Prime. Key thing to look out for is this reload speed here, and of course the ammo bank. So reload speed is 0.5 a second, which is pretty much non-existent for all intents and purposes. And that's why having Ice Storm on here is just simply a waste. I'll try to go off on our own so we don't have all these other guys shooting and confounding the results. So rate of fire is just humongous, and with Barrel Diffusion as well as Lethal Torrent, the multi-shot obviously is up there as well, and all you see is numbers and numbers and numbers. And pretty much everything around you just die. And because of the high rate of fire, it allows you to basically not aim and just scan the room, and it's really good against sort of crowd or cluster type enemies. So damage-wise, we're looking at about, 400-ish. There's some 300 numbers, some 400-ish, some 500-ish numbers, but generally about the upper 3 to lower 4, I would say, would be the average. So overall, very decent DPS, very high DPS. Of course, we do have that incredible, or lack of ammo efficiency, I should say. So a very low ammo efficiency, so I wouldn't recommend taking this to, high survival, high defense, unless you're someone who is willing to dump a lot of ammo restores. And for those of you that's quite new to the throwing knife type weapons, as you can see, we do have a traveling time, so it's not heat scan where it reaches the target immediately, and we have an arc. So for low to mid range, not a problem. For extreme long range, it may take a few shots before you get the correct aim. Alright, I mean, I'll admit I didn't really aim that well, and I didn't really, try to conserve bullets, but we are out of bullets now. So yeah, that's your Hikou Prime for you. Alrighty, so in conclusion, Hikou Prime versus the Spear versus Hikou Prime. The benefit of the Spear is that it does do higher damage per shot, which means it's slightly better for slightly higher level of enemies, and because of its lower rate of fire, it does have a better ammo efficiency. But the problem with this at baseline is these type of weapons are meant to be rapid firing weapons, right? Throwing knives, come on. So I'm not going to, use it like a Murloc where I'm going to fire one shot at a time. So in that sense, yes, it's better ammo efficiency, but it's not really the type of weapon for an ammo efficiency run, if you know what I mean. So not really for a long run anyway. The benefit of the Hikou Prime is that it has extremely high rate of fire, and what that allows you to do is it allows you to basically, sweep a room, just firing, just scanning through the room, and that pretty much kills everything in sight. The obvious disadvantage of that is because it's so ammo inefficient, slightly still better than the Dex Furious or the Race Twin Vipers, but still quite ammo inefficient in that, unless you're doing a really fast capture, sabotage, spy run, it may not be the best weapon to use unless you're more conscientious with your, firing. So overall, personally, I do enjoy the Hikou Prime a lot more. Just because when I was training the Hikou Prime, I was doing a lot of survivals, and in the early stage of the game, you get a lot of these sort of low level, sort of level 20-ish Lancers and the Corpus Crewmen in tower, and the Hikou Prime was extremely effective at killing them compared to the Despair. But for higher level, it's not really something you want to use anyway. You definitely want to go back to your Brack or your Murloc. So I guess the takeaway message from this is the Spear and Hikou Prime, are they worth your Formers? Are they worth a 5 Polarity? Are they worth a Potato? The answer is yeah, absolutely. Especially if you got your Brack and Murloc all trained up, definitely go for these weapons. They're a lot of fun. They're definitely worth, leveling up and going again and again with them. But having said that, I wouldn't make them a priority. Definitely go for your Brack and Murloc first. Those are your go-to weapons. Those are your, trump cards. And overall, out of these two, the Spear is the weapon that could take a few 100 hours to get. Hikou Prime, not so much. You can buy the parts from trade very easily. And like I said, Hikou Prime is my preferred out of the two, just because the higher rate of fire seems to outbeat the higher damage per bullet from the Despair. Alright guys, please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Cheers!